So this video is meant for people that are new to trials or have been playing ESO and want to get into trials but haven't quite figured out how, like outside of the group finder, or people that are interested but might be intimidated. Endgame has had a toxic reputation for a long time, but in my experience, the majority of the time that just isn't true. ESO has never had a clear path into trials and endgame. The group finder helps people farm gear and it'll give you a little glimpse, but it is not a realistic experience compared to organized raids with a team. Playing on teams in a more organized setting is the best content in the game, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about my path into endgame, share some information about the obstacles I ran into and how I handled them. I will try not to ramble too much, and hopefully this will help you get started on your own path into trials. In 2022, there was an initiative to get people into trials, and a bunch of guilds came together and advertised for people to come in and get some vet clears and get tagged in their discords so they could join more open runs. I had been playing solo for years, just sitting in the Undaunted tents, queuing pledges all day, wondering how to get into trials that weren't just a normal Craglorn pug. So I jumped at this opportunity, and the rest is history. Unfortunately, this project does not exist anymore, and even though the landscape has changed quite a bit, you can still get started into trials. So this brings me to my first tip, which is to play PvE, like play a lot of PvE. This is everything from dungeons to world bosses, honestly. I've seen some people in the past that looked like they have never dealt with a single mechanic or AoE in the game. Okay? If you play enough PvE and you pay attention, you'll understand better how to survive, because situations where you need to roll dodge or block or interrupt and do certain mechanics are all over this game. Believe it or not, a lot of it does cross over, and you will recognize things, whether it's getting out of certain AoE effects, separating enemies, or learning how to position properly. When it comes to dungeons, there's also the benefit of gear and monster sets for all roles that will be needed as you start running veteran trials. Okay, let's talk about normal content for a second. Normal dungeons and trials are useful to farm gear and get familiar with the layout, but understand that in no way do they prepare you for veteran content. It is not just a huge gap, but an actual galaxy of a difference between the two. I cannot emphasize that enough. Mechanics that you will barely see in normal content will often one-shot you on veteran. Look no further than the first boss in Dreadcell Reef. If the domes touch on normal, you will barely notice. However, if the domes touch on veteran, you will definitely notice. And if they touch on hard mode, it's a wipe. Now, it's also worth noting that veteran content doesn't always prepare you for hard modes either. But once you've done veteran trials enough, there's nowhere else to go except into the hard modes. That isn't to say everything you've learned in veteran is useless, but in general, everything will hurt more. You will see new mechanics along with tankier enemies, just to mention a few. Okay, so next up, I have gear, self-improvement, and role. I put all of these three together because they all sort of synergize with each other here. The first thing you should know is there are 0 requirements to run normals, okay? And you can even do this straight from the group finder. You can run these in crafted gear or even white gear. It does not matter. Your Rubido leather helmet is just fine for normal trials, okay? Go in there, have fun, and get gear. Now, some people would ask, what CP should I be at to start doing trials? When it comes to CP level, this depends on a lot of factors. Some raid leads or guilds may require a certain CP level, but there is no exact answer to this. generally for normal trials, anything is fine. Just get in there as soon as possible. The group finder also bypasses a lot of this. Even for veteran trials, there is no specific number to hit. It will make your life easier to have all of your slottables and some of the passives that give you extra healing received or damage mitigation. You will have to feel it out on a per group basis though. Leveling skill lines is another part of this, and having skill points to swap things in and out. I think you guys get the point. A character with 0 skill points and level 20 skill lines is probably not the one you want to bring into organized raids. Use your judgment. Okay, next up. Will I lack too much damage with lower CP? And I would say while it will be a bit lower than it could be, your rotation will have more impact on damage output than your gear or CP ever will. A DPS with regular crafted gear and a good rotation can easily outparse a DPS in perfected gear with a bad rotation. ESO combat and rotation is not intuitive at all, to be fair, and the game doesn't do much at all to teach you. Again, without rambling too much here, if you intend to go far into trifectas, you will need to understand rotations and parsing. Things like weaving apply to all roles and are very important in the overall performance of a group. I could make an entire video on this topic alone, but there are already tons of resources on the internet about weaving, parsing, and rotations. This is something you will have to research and practice more as you progress through content. You can also learn a ton from other players and things like ESO logs, which I will get into in a little bit. Okay, next up, you're probably thinking, well, don't I want perfected gear, and isn't it better? And I would say the difference in non-perfected gear to perfected gear is not huge, and it will almost always be better to run a non-perfected trial set than to not run one at all. Ultimately, the non-perfected gear you farm will help you meet requirements to get into veteran runs. This is still optimal gear minus 1 stat line, okay? The only difference will be a little bit of 1 stat, like crit or recovery. You don't even need to gold it out. Save your mats for that beautiful, perfected gear that you will be farming. Purple is more than enough to clear every veteran trial. Now, if you're someone who has been doing writs for 5 years and you have the mats, it is not a bad idea to gold out your non-perfected weapons, as they will give you the best bang for your buck. As you progress and start playing with teams, it will be more beneficial to gold out your entire setups and really optimize your builds. Your next thought is probably, how do I know what gear to farm? This is where a little bit of research is needed. ESO logs will tell you everything you need to know about what groups are running in content. Don't worry too much about running your own logs in the beginning. Often the raid lead or someone from your group will post some logs afterwards. It is nice to do it yourself at some point though, to guarantee that you will have them. And also, sometimes others might lose their logs if they disconnect or lose internet or something. There are also guides and tips about ESO logs on the internet, but in its simplest form, I will show just a couple things that can be done with logs. Okay, so here we go. This is a quick look at ESO logs. I pulled up a GS from last year. We will go into, let's just go into Loki. You can see just from the summary of the entire group how much information here from logs. Damage done per player, healing done per player, damage taken. You can even scroll down and get an overview of the gear that everybody was wearing, the classes that were in the group. Now if we go in and target search, I'll target search myself here. You can see what skills I was using. You can see my build. You can see enchants and traits and even armor weights and everything. Damage done, healing, damage taken, as I said. Now we go directly into healing. You can see all of my casts. You can see combat prayer cast 48 times, echoing vigor 22 times, etc. This is the simplest way to just show the depth of ESO logs. I'm not going to get into it. You can see that there are debuffs and buffs, and you can target the sources of each: casts, deaths, damage done. It goes on and on and on. There's replays, charts, and all kinds of things you can start comparing, and all of this. And you can do this for other groups as well. We'll go Lucent rankings here. You can just see groups. You can search by groups or roles and classes. Yeah, so ESO logs is amazing. I'll just leave it at that. There's tons of resources on the internet, as I said, to learn more about logs and how to use them. Okay, so I haven't talked about add-ons much, so this is as good a spot as any to do it. I assume that most people know of or even have a few add-ons for things like daily writs and stuff, but just in case, here is a quick look at Minion. Minion is like the installer and generally what people use to install their add-ons and the dependencies for them. Come in here. Let's just pretend that this is empty. You would find, okay, you want Hodors. There it is. Install it. You can click on it. You can see other add-on dependencies that you might need to run them. You get those. You can see sort of images of what you're going to get. And let's say, something like Wizard's Wardrobe. There you go. Install it. Sometimes there'll be information here to tell you sort of some shortcuts and things you can do for the settings that will help a ton. Add-ons can help with overall group performance and your own performance in any role. Stuff like buff and debuff timers, seeing your group's ultimate status, or even which sets you're wearing. Add-ons can also give you a heads up when certain mechanics are happening, or they can add custom icons for positioning of enemies and players. The further you get into endgame, you will see teams making their own markers for certain fights and using a lot of these add-ons to optimize runs. Again, I really could ramble a ton here, but Minion and most of the add-ons have been around for a long time. Essentially, everyone uses them in more organized groups, so don't worry too much about it early on. You can get new add-ons as you need them. If you're unsure about settings or which add-ons to run for your role, you can always ask in Discords. Some Discords even have like an add-on channel posting the most useful ones that you can install. As with most things, talking to other players is always good, and it can really help you learn more about add-ons and the game in general. Now, this is another point that is impossible to fit into this video, but to put it simply, learn your role. I want to be clear here. Do not mistake knowing the mechanics in a certain content with learning your role. These are two different things entirely. I remember years ago in the early days, I wanted to heal a Kind's Aegis hard mode. I had already healed the regular vet a bunch of times. I watched videos about the hard mode mechanics, and I thought I was prepared. When I got the chance, I joined the run. I healed, I didn't die, and I thought I did great. The logs said otherwise. My uptimes were awful. Okay, so despite knowing the content, it exposed my flaws even more, and it was very clear my uptimes needed work. I was not properly doing my role as a healer. So what I'm trying to say here is to learn your role. Learn your rotations, learn your sets, and how to keep good uptimes. And if you're a support, learn all of those things, plus the buffs and debuffs that you should be providing to the group. Knowing how sets work sounds obvious, but some things are very easy to overlook. Sets will sometimes have cooldowns or a max range that also needs to be managed. This applies to all roles. The better you understand your role, the easier it will be to run new and harder content as well. Fixing problems on the fly is also important when in content. Supports swapping a ring out for more sustain, or like a DPS swapping abilities in between pulls, can greatly improve performance. Again, The more you understand your role, the easier it is to diagnose issues with your builds and fix them. So without going down a rabbit hole even further here, I would say become a student of your role, run lots of content, chat with other players, ask questions, and basically just let the obsession begin. Okay, next up, if you haven't already, you're going to want to join some guilds and discords. You can search the in-game guild finder and look for trial guilds or any guild really that mentions things like training runs or gear runs. There are several different types of guilds. When it comes to PvE, you will find casual and social guilds, which can be good for farming normals, perhaps getting some vet clears, and just getting your foot in the door. Then there will be more trial-heavy guilds that are doing more veteran content, and they might have some cores running in that Discord. They will generally have more active trial players and a more active LFG channel. Then there's going to be almost trial exclusive guilds that have several cores and even like hard mode pugs or trifecta pugs running. Each of these types of guilds and discords will have different requirements for runs, varying from almost no requirements to set requirements or straight up experience and clear requirements for harder content. As I mentioned earlier, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I never understood this idea that like asking questions makes you stupid somehow. Every person who has ever had any success in endgame has at one point asked questions. It might feel bad at the time, but trust me, it will feel amazing when you don't die to a mechanic anymore and you never have to ask that question ever again. When I finally got into Discords, I joined every run I could. I got some vet clears and posted my Pithka to get tags. Pithka is an add-on that will track your clears. Generally, Discords will have a clears channel where you can post a screenshot to get tagged. This allows raid leads to see that you have some experience, and it is generally how you can progress into harder content. When it comes to joining teams, you will see different requirements, and at some point, it will require logs for more advanced content. One issue I remember having in the beginning was that I needed clears to get more clears, and I needed experience to get more experience. I won't lie, it will be rough in the beginning. Some runs will be more organized than others. There will be wipes and failed runs that don't clear. This is something you will just have to get through. It will start to snowball though. Like once you pick up clears, you do a good job, you meet more people, and you get your name out there, you'll be surprised how much you will be asked to join runs. You will need to get into calls with 11 other people and start to grow that thick skin. Hopping in calls with others will become mandatory the further you progress into trials. Now, I say that you need to grow a thick skin not because most of the scene is toxic. Okay, in fact, I'd say it's the opposite. In my experience of years running with people in this game, the toxic people tend to get pushed out of teams very quickly, and it's not something you should worry about. However, you will need a thick skin for things like teammates disconnecting, bad microphones, people being late, last minute fills, your own PC issues, or server performance, just to name a few. Which brings me into progging. If you want to push hard modes and eventually trifectas, you will need patience. Trifectas and progs are not for everyone, and that's okay. If the thought of wiping for 2 hours to a boss while your group learns a strat irritates you, then maybe it's not for you. You have to enjoy the process in some way. If all you care about is the title or amount, then you will lose your mind. Trust me on this. Enjoy the process and try to do the next pull better than your last. You will need to curb your expectations. I don't want to scare anybody, but I've been in progs that took several months. Depending on the experience of the players in the group, people will progress at different paces, and some roles are going to be more demanding than others. Watching trifecta videos can make a fight look very easy. In reality, behind that video is a bunch of wiping and a bunch of fails and a learning curve, especially when it's a first-time prog. Vibes are a huge thing in my experience. When the vibes are bad, nobody wants to be there. When vibes are good, people are having fun, they're confident, and it's amazing what a team can accomplish. I'm going to link a good video from Nefas a couple years ago that still holds up today. There's lots of good advice about raid etiquette in here. Go check that out. Now, if you play a lot, you may even outgrow a group that you've been running with, and that can hold you back sometimes. You should try to find groups that share the same goals as you. If you're in a guild that runs veteran trials casually once a week, this might not be the best place to try and push into hard modes. Not all people running veterans care about clearing hard modes or trifectas. As I said, there are tiers for all levels of raiding. Don't try to force your goals with a group that doesn't have the same objectives. Your time will be better spent joining a group that does. It's also okay to leave and try to join groups doing more organized and harder content. Hard modes are hard, and then all of a sudden they're not. They just become the default trial for you. Without realizing it, you can improve to that level if you keep pushing yourself. At the end of the day, this is still about fun. This is supposed to be fun. If you don't like a group you're in, leave. If a guild or Discord is not that active, it's okay to leave for a more active one. Anyway, this video is way longer than I intended, but there was a lot of things that I wanted to mention. Hopefully this helps some people out there that were unsure or intimidated about getting into raids and endgame. Maybe one day I will see you doing laps in Mournhold, flexing your unstoppable mount. Thanks for watching, and good luck out there.